so is it too early?
That's okay.
Just
By the time-
not talk for 30 seconds and you'll
Yeah. Well, we're ready.
Okay. Let's call to order the meeting of the Rockport Select Board for Monday, September 9th. We're here in the Parker Room. It's 6 p.m. And we have John Veman participating remotely, but the rest of the board members are here. First item are any amendments to the agenda. Next, public comment on non-agenda items. Bob?
Good evening. I don't know if this is working, but my name is Bob Colmar. I'm a resident of town. I've been a resident for a few years. Some time ago, I served in the United States Marine Corps. And one thing I've always taken very seriously is our patriotism. I'd like the select board to consider a pledge of allegiance to our flag at the commencement of our meeting. This is the only community I've ever been to a town leadership meeting where we don't pledge the flag at the beginning of the meeting. I'd like to offer that for your consideration. Thank you. It takes 15 seconds from the time we stand to the time we sit. Enjoy our pledge. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
I hadn't even thought of that.
My name's Rose Director. I live at 73 Pascal Ave. So I wanted to talk about Airbnb also, but I wasn't sure if I could address any of the issues that I've got here as well. They're not on the agenda. A little confusing.
Yeah, and we wouldn't want to take a ton of time with a lot of issues. If there are
Yeah.
some issues that are more appropriately placed on the agenda in a future meeting, we can handle it that way, but if there's something.
Well, I don't get to come here too often, and my daughter was here, so I just wanted to say a couple things.
Okay, yeah.
I just wanted to say that I feel that I personally am actually a benefit to this town because of my Airbnb, and I feel that the Airbnb offers a benefit because it's just one room, but I'm willing to do the work. It's a lot of work to do Airbnb. It's not.
And you know, we don't regulate Airbnbs in Rockport.
So, okay. Well, I feel that I'm getting charged a second sewer line because of Airbnb, but besides that, I just wanted to say that it's a 100% benefit to the community, and there's no negatives. It doesn't take anything away. It doesn't take away apartments or anything like that. It should be supported. And honestly, it's a lot of work. So people who are willing to offer a room to give a good experience in the old-fashioned town that isn't a hotel and that is off extra, it's great, and it's all good. And I did it to make extra money to pay the constantly raising bills, including the sewer fees, which was like what really went high. And then I have this second sewer line that I've been disputing for a long time, and I really want to address that. We talked about that, trying to do it as smoothly as possible, and I made videos for you guys of my entire house and my basement, and so I have a lot of evidence that I only have the one sewer line. But the house seemed like it was more than it was, I guess, because of the Airbnb temporarily.
And you might be merging into what you want to have on the agenda in October if you're going to the abatement request. Is that where you're headed?
So is that is where you discuss this whole thing with the second sewer lines, that other people will also be addressing this issue?
Yes.
And that's where we present, and that's where my appeal will go up on the screen, or it will be more officially presented, or I'll be on the roster type of thing?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it was just a big deal to get here, so I didn't want to waste my opportunity to introduce myself, and,
appreciate
you know, and the concern about my channel, I just wanted to mention, I was very surprised to hear that someone had reported me, and I do want to find out about that, because
Sure.
I too am being constantly slandered on YouTube,
Yeah,
and it's a very big risk, and I know what it's like, and I also am dealing with it. People in other countries, it's not a lot of, you know what I mean? It's really hard to control something like that. So, but anyway, you're all welcome to join the channel and come up on panel and talk about everything, because we would love to have you. And I'm an open channel, so I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Rose.
Next is the town manager's report.
Well, it's been this is one of those times a year where you could hang a under construction sign from the town line and then just sort of let it go. We have two different parts of Main Street under very different types of construction. We have the Robinson Drive entrance, which is very much under construction. We just finished the major project in the Bay Ridge subdivision, which was just to get a sense of, for people, how this works. The town in the early 2000s accepted there were a lot of subdivisions built and a lot of roads built at that same time. And certainly you have a period of time that extends where eventually you have to do repairs to paved roads that you accept. But of course, there's also the part of it where you're blending in different pieces of a subdivision, which were done at different times, and you have underground power. And so putting those situations, which are certainly deferred maintenance, but then on top of that, the somewhat patchwork way that some of these subdivisions have come together and put them into the town road system, it's not an easy fix. All roads were not built equally. And so the Bay Ridge was a project that was originally in last year's budget, got held over into this year's budget. And the work completed on the hill has really been fantastic. It's something that I've been driving by every day, so I've been following it very closely. And really a credit to our staff. Again, we talked about they were shorthanded. I mentioned this last time. We've had 5 employees where we have 7 spots. And really, not only just the fact that we're taking that on a little bit understaffed, but also people taking on new leadership roles, new responsibilities, training on the job, trying to get to the point where our staff is able to do more things and not just a selected number of niche areas that they lead into. And so really happy with what we've done. The product that's been completed up there is really outstanding. And I'm hopeful that I'm hoping Mother Nature can play along and not wreck things, because it seems as though every time we've paved a road, we've had major damage on that road due to some rainstorm a few weeks later.
And
So
generally in the October timeframe.
yeah, so knock on wood.
Fingers crossed.
Right. But really helpful and very thankful for the work that's done there. I want to talk a little bit about elections. We're sort of that post-Labor Day thing where everyone starts to clue into election season. So let me just take a moment to talk about this. So the election, once again, will take place at the library, the bottom level. We met earlier last week, to look at our different plans for parking, safety, being prepared for the fact that the secretaries of states across the country are expecting the potential for some, basically bad actors being involved, doing some things that, could disrupt the election. And so trying to be prepared for that, even in little old Rockport, we have to be prepared for these things. And unfortunately, we see more and more the problems that we see elsewhere sometimes find their way to Rockport. So being prepared for that, having our police prepared for that, we're going to have an officer in and around the building all day long just to be prepared in case anything goes awry. We'll have a fire nearby. We're going to have parking availability for Election Day, not only in the areas right around Memorial Park and the library, but through Central Street and running up all the way up to Grafham's. We're going to make sure that people can get in and get out as easily as possible, because I think those of us who live here, don't look at that as an easy in, easy out situation, but we're going to try to make it that way best we can with, limited times for people parking. If you're there for all day to work, that's not the place to park on Election Day. Park down at the harbor, park anywhere. We're glad to work with you on that if you're an employee. We want to make sure everyone can get to work that day. But that's one day out of the year we want to make sure everyone can get in and vote. So that's hugely important. Second thing I want to mention is the absentee ballot process. So there's already the opportunity to apply for an absentee ballot. It's available now. Actually, it was from the middle of last month. I put a link in my report, but you can go on the Secretary of State's website. It's a very simple process. You just say who you are, and it will come. Those absentee ballots will be, once they're available, they'll be mailed to you. So we have that. The ballots should be in early October, so you'll have about a month to take that ballot, cast it, and we have a drop-off box at the town office. You can drop it off on Election Day, although, if you're going to go in that way, I'm not sure it makes a difference. You could obviously drop it in the mail. And the other thing that's available, and I want to make sure people are aware of, is that you can cast your ballot at the town office. So this is obviously tax due time. Our taxes, first payment is due on October 15th. But you can go in at any point. So if you need to register your car, and the ballots are available, from that point in early October on, feel free to swing by. We have a ballot booth we set up there in the lobby. You can cast your ballot. You're in, you're out, and you've done your duty. No parking, no going out in early November. Simple, easy, to the point, and you've done what you need to do. So certainly urge people to do that. And then the last thing I want to mention about this is that registering to vote. We have a lot of new people who've moved to town since 2020. So the process to sign up is super, super easy. I also put the link in my report for that. My son just turned 18 last month, so he signed up to register to vote. And of course, he's in town or whatever, but we did it online because I was like, how does this work? It was ridiculously simple. It's a little, you fill out your information, who you are, why you're here, and they'll send you a card. Yeah, you're registered. So we're trying to make this as easy as possible to people to get out and do their civic duty and have their voice heard. So we certainly hope people will take advantage of those situations, and we want people it's a free, fair, and safe election. That's the point. Our job is to make sure Rockport is taken care of, and we hope that every town and city has that ability to do that, but it's something I take a lot of pride in, our staff do as well. So last thing I would just mention on that is that we will have staff working that day. The election process has become more complicated, and certainly when you look at this paragraph where I'm talking about the potential for bad things occurring, the training is ever more important, and the things we're asking of people who work on election day is ever more important. And we certainly don't want people who are poor health, somebody who could be we certainly saw this during COVID. We don't want people who have issues, health issues that could worsen by around other people, and we want to make sure people can get in, get out, and our staff who are able and willing are able to do so. We have staff from all over the town, the town office, the library, everybody gets involved to pitch in, because this is, like I said, this is one of our biggest things we do all year. So anyway, so I just want to mention that. I think that's a pretty important piece of this, and staff obviously plays a key role in it. The last thing I wanted to talk about is where we are with our EMS situation. So we went through interviews a couple weeks ago. We've extended offers to a number of candidates we have for those positions. We are not fully staffed yet. We haven't sort of worked through all the details of, okay, I have an offer, but I have questions about how the health plan works. So we're there, but we're getting very, very close. And I'm excited with the candidates that we had who applied. I think that we have a lot of people who, after the interview, everyone looks around and says, hire them now.
Yeah, don't let them get away.
Right. That's so, and the fear was, when we started talking about this a year ago, was great. We build this program, but then what happens if people aren't available? So that doesn't seem to be the issue where we're at right now. So hopefully that will move forward, and I'm hoping to have more information about staff and start up at the next meeting in October. Obviously, part of that, when that start date occurs, will coincide with the West Rockport Fire Station completion, and things are moving.
I see November 1 in your report.
Yeah, I would say that was the anticipated date. I think if you go by today, it's the idea of being, in there and ready to turn the lights on in 6 weeks is probably a little premature. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's say that. But I would say that there's some renewed energy going into that process, and there will be no shortage of effort put towards making that happen, at least from the town side of things. Let's hope our builder is able to get enough people to show up and carry forward. But I'm eager to see that done, and we're obviously working.
It is looking great, though.
Yeah, with taking the old one
Put the
down,
old one
people.
down, and it's really
like,
kind of
wow,
come
this is
to
exciting.
life, so.
I was looking through some old Camden Heralds a couple weeks ago, and I found the article from when the station was
built?
opened. Yeah, in '74.
Nice.
For a total of $38,000.
Wow, well, there's that.
So
Right, there's.
things have changed
Yes.
a little bit.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we're going to be a little bit over that budget in building this one, but I think I'm eager to see this take off. So very excited about that. And the last thing I'll just mention is the library loan is back and open and ready. That's been a many months long journey that the state library has been fighting, but it's back open. So for those who are looking to go back and take part with the books that we don't have, but they're out there in the system, come on back. So that's exciting. That's about it.
Great.
Great. Any questions for John? No? Okay, great. Thanks, John. Next is the consent agenda, and we have our minutes from August 19th on that agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? So moved. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay. John? Great. Next are, under our action items, the first are act on committee applications, and these are applications for the Harbor Strategic Plan Task Force. And in our agenda, we had 4 applicants as of the time the agenda went out on Friday, and I'm almost starting to lose count, John, but we got another 6.
Six
So-
more.
Six more.
Yeah.
And just a wonderful group of folks, I mean, of all levels of engagement in the town, various backgrounds and expertise. So it's, I think it's wonderful to have that level of interest in this task force. And we deliberately did not set a limit for the number of folks to serve on that task force. And my inclination is, we can go through them, some of them are here. We can meet and listen to you. But my inclination would be that we sort of consider thinking about making all 10 members of the task force.
I see no concern or no reason why we wouldn't do that. I mean, if we have 10 people who have stepped up and want to participate, then I
I
think
like
that's great.
seeing the comments that they've made and their backgrounds on a lot of them. I mean, I felt very, very comfortable.
Yeah,
with
Coming
these.
from a lot of different angles.
Yeah.
Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
I really feel like we'll be well served by the.
Environmental and living on the water and working the
Working
water.
on the
There's
water
a
and-
lot of diversity there.
Yeah. Well, I see that we have,
Good Sam.
yeah, we've got Josh, Sam. So let's see. Josh, Bob. I'm sorry, Bob, I'm just going through
You're
our
on the
list of
agenda
who's on the
first.
agenda. So if you wouldn't mind coming up, and you already introduced yourself, but now you have a different hat on.
Thank you. Before that, I'd like to put in a word for Bill, who is, I believe, also on that
Yes,
list.
he
Yes,
is on
Bill
that
Bowe
list.
is first.
I worked with Bill Bowe on the wastewater task force. Bill is a real professional, had to have at least 30 years' experience as a geologist. He was the chair of the task force. He currently serves as the vice chair of the Conservation Commission. Real professional, knows what he's doing, no meandering off course, very focused, and really spent a lot of time on the wastewater test. So I was very pleased with his leadership and his work ethic. So that's my plug for
Your plug for
Mr.
Bill.
Bill Bowe, who's on your list. Me, well, I'm a little older.
And wiser.
48 years as a civil engineer involved in infrastructure and transportation with a background in design, engineering, construction, and project management. I have an idea how to look at projects with an eye towards the end zone and don't get wrapped up in the politics of it. The facts speak for themselves. Bill and I have discussed the project before. It's very complicated. There's a number of issues, both public and private, that have to be dealt with. And we understand from Bill's presentation at the library for the Conservation Commission that this is going to be an ongoing problem and it has to be addressed. So
Yeah.
Appreciate consideration. Look forward to
Absolutely.
meeting and working with a number of people in this community, because this is a very important element for us. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Agree. Any questions for Bob?
No?
No? Great, thank you, Bob. Josh?
Hi there, I'm Josh Gerritsen. Let's see, I moved to Rockport last year, so I'm happy to be in my new hometown. I was in Lincolnville for 10 years, served on the select board there for 6 years. I was a member of Midcoast Solid Waste as a board of director for 2 years. And I was the chair of the Lincolnville Broadband Committee for let's see, 2 years, and then also the chair of the Waldo County Budget Committee for 4 out of my 6 years on that, I believe. Yeah, and I have a degree in environmental studies. No specific technical knowledge like some of the other applicants, but my passion for sustainability, for combating climate change, and just being realistic about the challenges that our community faces in the future are really big passions of mine. And I plan on being here for the 20 plus years, raising my child with my family. And yeah, I'm just excited to jump into this work and be part of a task force, a group of people to work together and to hear diverse voices to really come up with a solution that makes sense for us.
Great. Any questions for Josh?
No, but nice article on the Village Soup and in the paper this week
Oh.
I saw about you, so
Thank you so much.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. Thank you,
Thanks,
Josh. Appreciate it.
I think we have 2 more. Sam, do you want to?
Hey, Sam Temple. I'm the majority owner of Rockport Marine, which is currently 57 employees and 8 subcontractors. So represent the working waterfront in that way. I also own Rockport Marine Transport, which hauls most of the boats over 30 feet out on the ramp. And I've been on the harbor committee for 15 years, maybe.
That's all?
Correct. Maybe more. I think I've been chair for a dozen or so. So yeah, I actually, Abby suggested on Saturday that I apply for this committee. I don't know, I didn't actually even know what to call it in my application.
We got you.
I
You're-
don't, I
You're
don't,
not the only one.
you know,
We have many names for this.
seeing the other names that are on the agenda, if it's more technical, you know, I wouldn't feel like I need to be on it. But if it, my impression was that it was somewhat in response to the Working Waterfront Grant. Is that
Yes.
the case?
Yes.
I think it's a big part of it. I think it goes back, I would say this originally goes back to a conversation we had in the Harbor Committee, I don't know, 2 years ago or so, when we talked about letters of intent and how to capture all that is Rockport Harbor. And I think the Working Waterfront Grant is a cornerstone of what could occur. But as we saw from the events of last January, obviously the impacts are broader, the issues are broader than one side of the harbor, certainly. And the idea is that really have this group to be able to put forth a strategic plan that takes into account all these various factors, whether it's business, whether it's residential, it's everything that is from Rockport Marine to the kids fishing off the dock to catch mackerel.
Yep.
You know, it's all those things. It's things the Harbor Committee's been working on for years. It's things the Conservation Commission's been working on for years. It's everything all in one. You know, it's park issues that have cropped up, you know, of late. It's everything. And the idea is to really put that all in one pot and have a diverse, I think, group of people. That's the way that the task force was created, diverse group of people, some technical, but some who are bringing forth 15 plus years experience, but more to the table to explain how do we solve these problems in Rockport Harbor. that's really, I think that's what it is in a nutshell.
And what do we need to protect the future of the stakeholders currently in the harbor and the harbor that our community
Yeah.
enjoys?
Is there, you know, if I search, am I gonna find a mission statement or something like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
For the, okay, I'll
There's
look at
a
that.
set of bylaws that we adopted at our last meeting, which I'm happy to forward to you.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay, John.
Yeah, and I guess if that's the case, that it is more than technical, I'm very glad to hear there have been more applicants, and I guess not knowing who they are, I'd like to make, advocate that there be some, input from commercial fishermen and.
And there will
you know,
be that. Carrie
Carrie
Keith is
Keith is one of-
applied.
is one of the
Bradford Scott.
applicants.
Yep, great,
And your practical hands-on experience down there
yep,
will tie in here very well.
okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
great.
thank you, appreciate it.
Thanks, Sam. And I'm afraid I don't know you. Are you here? Okay,
Okay.
okay, great. I just didn't.
Well, if you want to,
If you want, we can make it 11.
so maybe we should, because other people aren't here.
Yeah.
We know we have the list
Yeah.
that was on the agenda, but we also
And
have
John
some.
could give us the names. We've been, so we've
Yes,
got,
so we have Doug Cole that
is not
was
here
not here, but
tonight.
also was an applicant.
Yep, and well
his
known
final
to a
statement.
lot of us. I loved his
Is that a
last
trick
one.
question?
Yeah. What other committees would you like to be on? And he's like, what other ones am I not on?
That's the easiest question.
So we have Nancy Albertson, who submitted an application.
Yeah.
Jennifer Seavey. I'm going through these one at a
Carrie
time.
Keith,
Carrie Keefe. Yep,
Bradford Scott,
yep. And,
and Davis Lee.
yep, you got them all.
Okay, great.
Can I ask
So-
a question?
Yes.
Yes.
How do we advocate for Abby's participation throughout this whole process?
Oh, I think she'll be a key part of this, right? I don't-
Yeah, Abby and Orion will be staffing this task force
Okay.
and working hand in hand with the 10? We had 10? 10
That's
of
what I
you.
was thinking, but I must be missing some.
Yeah, hand in hand to work through this. And for Sam's benefit, since he's here, and for anyone listening, there is the bones of an RFP request that has been put together to bring someone in. We have funding to hire a firm to come in and assist this task force. And the first effort, really beyond electing officers, chair, people, and so forth, would be to work through that RFP, make sure that the RFP is reflective of the task force's wishes and desires and where specificity is needed and so forth, and then to circulate that RFP and come back. There is a budgeted amount of $60,000 for this project, and that's the RFP only. But that's meant to be inclusive of reaching out to other stakeholders that are not represented and those who are represented to ensure we have a fully throated representation and both those hired but also the committee are able to get a fair representation of what is Rockport Harbor, and there's a lot of areas where there may be expertise as part of the task force, but we have others out there who are willing to meet, and so the timetable on this is such that we're hoping to have the committee pulled together as soon as possible, and then staff would meet with the task force. Task force would hopefully circulate an RFP. We'd love to have a prospective, firm or individual who submits the RFP at work this winter, and meeting with the task force and beginning to, do the work. Because the further we delay, the more difficult it is for us as a town to meet the needs of what could be a very fruitful and planning effort. And the hope is for us to take that and run with it and be able to start putting those things in our capital planning, start putting those things in our annual operating budgets and so forth. So,
Well, I know that both individuals, Abby and Orion, are extremely busy, so we appreciate you adding yet another log to their pile, but we very much welcome their absolute participation. So thank you for that commitment.
Great, thanks, Bob.
All right, are we ready for a motion?
We are.
Okay, then I move to approve and it is 10, right?
10,
The
yep.
10 committee applications as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great.
Thank you all.
Yes, and thank you for those of you who came and for
Yes.
your service to the town.
That's right. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is act on the special town meeting referendum. And I got some clarification for myself, because when I hear special town meeting, I think that's something
Something
other than
special,
the two
right.
election days that we have. But it turns out the June election is the election for our town, and a November ballot is a special town meeting.
Yes.
So,
I mean, they're all special in their own way,
I know,
right?
voting
But-
is special, but
But, you know, yeah. So there, yeah, that's right. So it's not the annual, it's special. And so that's the term that you use for this. So this is, and my apologies for sending a draft so late for Article 10. Certainly we understood why we would have 10 articles at some point, but that last article was a little bit more difficult to throw a lasso around for a few different issues, and we'll kind of get into those, I guess, when we get there. But to walk through the warrant, I guess, as it's drafted here, and I'm using the draft that I've sent over, which is the 10 article version, not the 9 article, which is part of the packet.
okay.
So there's 10 articles in total. The first one, obviously, to elect a moderator. That's not anything to worry about. Articles 2 through 8, well, I guess 2 through 7, I should say, were items that were at least initially reviewed by the planning board to some degree, or to a great degree, depending upon the article. So I don't know if we want, maybe Ryan, if you want, do you want to walk through each one and what the content areas of each, or we have Jeff come up to talk about behalf of the planning board. Not sure how you want to work through those.
Yeah,
pieces.
between the two of you, I don't have a preference. I think it's useful for people either watching now or might watch a tape of this meeting.
Just know high level,
Yeah.
what it means,
Yeah.
right?
What we're trying to accomplish with these.
And let me just also say that also on your agenda in October will be the public hearing for these articles.
Okay.
So this is, the only job tonight is for the board to place and create a warrant. Create a vote on any recommendations if they are, which for Article 9 and 10, those are the two articles you would provide recommendations on. And then, actually in Article 8 as well. Article 8 could be, but the Articles 2 through 7 were directed towards the planning board, and so their recommendation votes are there. But apart from that, that's it for tonight. If there was back and forth, there were those 4, Article 6 or against it, the time to be hearing that is really during the public hearing.
Okay.
This is really a procedural matter, but one that the board is deciding their policies of what they want to have the voters consider.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so keep it high level, but
high level.
and then the chance for the public who might have questions or want to understand
be
this
at the
better would be at the next meeting.
Right,
And that's
exactly.
the October 15th.
Yep.
Okay.
And John's good.
John has a question.
Oh, sorry, John.
Yeah, so my question is, are we finalizing the language for the articles tonight, John? Or is this
My
essentially,
understanding is this
we're
is- it
approving
goes
and
to the
voting on a
printer.
draft?
No, that's exactly right. You're finalizing, at the end of tonight's meeting, all the language, all the periods and commas, everything should be where you want them to be.
Okay, and then second question, you vote to recommend or not recommend.
Yep, where applicable. That's exactly right.
So this is not voting to just put them on the warrant.
Right, it'll be a two-step process. It would be first to place them on, and then secondarily to go back through which questions require your recommendation, and then vote on each one.
Right, so there was a big discussion of this actually at the last Camden Select Board meeting, that when we put votes, it's on.
Hey, John, I don't know if it's on your end or our end, but we're getting a lot of feedback. Oh, well, it's, okay,
Okay,
it's something
is that
different than
better?
feedback, but
Yeah, try that. Sorry, yeah, it was,
Is that better?
yes, so
Yeah.
far good.
Okay. So to be clear, we're voting to recommend that voters approve these articles when we say recommend. Is that correct?
correct.
Yes.
That's right.
We're not voting to say we've agreed to put them on the warrant so people can vote any way they want.
No, that's exactly right. It's two separate considerations. That's right.
Okay, I just want to clarify that. That's fine.
You got
Okay.
it.
Okay, take it away.
So these ordinance amendments came about from internally from my department. I tasked the code enforcement officers to review the land use ordinance to see what kind of snags that they're having to deal with. So the cleanup items of this are from them. Now, I think it's Articles 6 and 7 or 7 and 8.
6 and 7.
6 and 7. So 6 and 7, those are two new ordinances, one to live in the land use ordinance, one to be its standalone. Those two are created to solve some of the issues that we're currently having in town. So some issues that are requiring fire and police services at certain locations at various times of the day, and we can do nothing about it. And others where there's businesses that are in predicament or in certain predicaments with the state that we don't have a local ordinance to address. Now, it gives us the teeth to solve these problems, but it's more of an educational bit to say, hey, business, here's a set of requirements that you need to adhere to based on certain codes, and you need to do this yearly. And so we'll go in, do our inspection, give them a report, and then come through and do another check. Hey, you didn't do X, Y, and Z on this report. You need to follow through within the next number of days, or there'll be a penalty, and then move forward on that front. So they're not more than just educational components to get businesses to operate to code.
They're not more than, so they are educational.
They are educational, but they have the ability to give us the teeth to act if needed.
Okay.
And then the rest of them are primarily cleanup items.
Okay.
So could you just like through Article 2, could you give us the high level of the changes that the amendments we're requesting as part of
Yeah.
Chapter 300?
Yeah, Chapter 300 is our definition, so there's some cleanups of basement. We added basement, common
Cellar,
cellar
yeah.
kind
That's
of
so the
thing.
red
Yeah.
line version.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
So when somebody goes to the town, when the voters want to, if somebody wants to know ahead of time what they're voting on, if they go to the town office, can
they
they?
can go to the town website or the town office, and
Okay,
those
it is on
copies
the
will be there.
website, the website
They
is on
will
there with
be
the,
on the
They
okay.
can pull
website,
that
yes.
up and see
Okay.
these.
It'll be on the front page as well as my
Okay.
page.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's important, right? Because we don't want people to get to the voting booth and say,
Right.
well, I don't know what happened in
know.
300, I'm just gonna vote it down, so.
Right, and I also type up an explanation of a newsletter.
Perfect,
for
okay.
Well,
That's
the people
great.
who are really paying attention can do that.
Okay, that's great, because I think that's gonna be important.
In the definitions, the only item, sorry, let me introduce myself.
Yes,
My name's-
please,
yes,
yes.
My
I'm
name's
sorry
Jeff
for not-
Leclaire.
I've seen you
I'm
at the-
trying to fill the big shoes of Joe Stronowski now as the chair of the
Well,
Rockport Planning
welcome,
Board.
and
Well,
thank
yes,
you.
Thank you very
so
much.
for-
This is my first meeting. This was my first meeting chairing. This is my first select board meeting reporting back to you. John
to
also
meet you.
wasn't at that meeting, so unfortunately your representation wasn't there either. And Orion wasn't at the meeting either.
Wow, you
so we
really
did
had
the best we
you
could.
had many big
Right,
shoes
yes.
to
They
fill
did-
that
they did
night,
a really
okay.
good job.
But Orion prepared me for it, so I hope
Perfect.
we knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
The only item we had under the definitions that we didn't quite understand more than disagreed with was under the definition of, I believe, commercial greenhouse.
I saw the,
It referenced both a structure and an activity, and we felt that the language wasn't very clear to us, and we also couldn't really parse it, and the code enforcement representatives weren't really able to get us there either. So we felt like that was one we really needed to kick back. The rest of it, as edited, we approved. So
Oh, so that was one that should come off.
that really should come
Oh,
off.
then,
the
yeah.
commercial greenhouse.
Commercial greenhouse, and I understand
Okay.
that was integral to defining greenhouse versus commercial.
That's fine.
It just, it didn't,
That's fine. There's
pass our
a,
understanding more than anything else.
yeah, there's a business that it's confused with commercial greenhouse for what they're doing, but they're actually a greenhouse. So we don't have a greenhouse definition. So
Yeah.
it's fine if that comes out for now. We can
So the
address
word
it.
But we are-
commercial will come out, or,
No,
Below, we have a greenhouse
won't
definition
change.
we're adding.
we won't. We'll pull this off of that page, but the commercial greenhouse is already defined. I was proposing to edit that
edit.
definition.
okay,
So
okay.
now
So
it'll just say
for clarity.
There'll be no change.
a greenhouse engaged in the raising for sale. What will,
We'll just stay the language that's there
The
currently.
language in it will currently stay.
we're not asking
say
the voters.
greenhouse engaged.
Okay, so
in
we're
the-
not asking them to
We're not.
agree to any amendments of that commercial greenhouse line.
so we have definitions to amend and then definitions to add. The definition to add down there of greenhouse, that just comes off also?
No, that stays. So everything else that's in that document,
Okay.
we approve.
So we are adding a new definition of greenhouse.
Correct.
Okay. But not
So
a commercial
we have
In
a-
greenhouse.
addition to commercial greenhouse stays.
No, that
Right,
gets,
so we have a use table. In the use table, there's a greenhouse and then there's a commercial greenhouse. And they have different categories in the zones of where they can exist.
yeah.
But we don't have a definition for what a greenhouse is. So
Okay, so that's what
primarily,
you're
we
adding.
definitely need a definition. The commercial
Yeah.
greenhouse, we can
You can
address
keep
that again
You
later.
as
can
it- okay.
live with what you've got.
Okay.
Okay,
So we'll take that off, so, okay. So we'll make an amendment on that, okay.
so anything else on that in terms of,
So commercial greenhouse is not one that's being amended.
Correct.
Okay, license.
And then for chapter 500 or section 505, there was just a link that didn't go anywhere, so it just changed to 1412.
Okay,
That's all that 505 was.
okay. Easy change,
and then
okay.
600, that's what,
Chapter 600 was more cleanup on more administrative items and to go into energy code. So I don't know if you
So
want-
chapter 600 actually had the most discussion, the edits that were being proposed, and I think it was not even clear in the language of what was being changed, what the implication was. And I think that's what, that sort of spawned the discussion. So what we had in there, I don't exactly remember, and I can't read it from here, was something about the town of Rockport adopts the main uniform building code. As of, I think, 5 years ago, the state legislation said that all municipalities can only adopt the main uniform building code, so there's really no choice that the town has to adopt it or not adopt it. It must. Where the state legislation provided some leniency was in enforcement. So small towns, defined as under 4,000 population towns, had the option of not enforcing the energy conservation portion of the main uniform building and energy code, otherwise
so
known
when
as
it,
MUBEC.
ours says we have adopted the main uniform building code, but not the energy code.
That's what it previously said.
Right,
Okay,
Right, so that
We
was
wanna
prior to
remove
2000,
that.
I mean, 2000, I think, or, sorry, 2020, I believe, the town had the option to adopt one or the other.
okay. And we're
And now
now,
it's-
we don't have that.
We don't have the option.
And so we're adopting the whole thing.
We only have the option to enforce the energy conservation code. And so, in our discussion, some good points were brought up that as a planning board and as a town, we're trying to encourage affordable housing, we're trying to encourage affordable construction. And I think this is probably where our vote split. I don't think it was clear, and I'm sort of speaking on behalf of my own opinion, I don't think it was entirely clear that no building may be built in the town that does not comply with the energy conservation code. So you cannot build a non-compliant structure. It's just a matter of whether the town chooses to enforce it,
But you still.
but you still need to.
oh,
So we
yeah,
had two
so
code
it's an
officers.
Enforcement discretion
Correct.
question.
So we had two code officers at the meeting. I asked them, you know, is this a big lift for your office to enforce it? Andrew said that no, it's one extra step, so it's not nothing, but it's not something he's unfamiliar with and something he was capable of doing.
Yeah,
Scott, I think, is a little bit newer to the conservation code enforcement of it, but he's, I mean, pretty learned on it too.
yeah, okay. The ones, so maybe I'm jumping to the next one, 605 for code enforcement officer. I just had a question, because up until now, we've added the he, she, And in a lot of the rest of our codes and charters, we've used there, which I know is,
They or them or whatever.
yeah. So just for consistency, I know it's sort of a tough thing
I can add a
grammatically.
note to
but-
that for the next, for June,
Okay.
to clean that up.
To clean
just
that up,
change it
just
all
so
to-
that it's consistent, you
Yep.
know, because earlier we talked about the fire chief there,
Yep.
or their designee. So, yeah, just make a note for that. It's not obviously critical, but,
Consistency.
yeah. And then I noticed some of the comments, I don't know if those are gonna, they're sort of like grayed out, I'm not sure what.
The
on
comments won't stay when it's
Okay.
posted on the
When
website.
when the
Okay.
public's looking at
Since I
that.
wasn't
Yeah.
here, what got sent over is just, what just was downloaded, so. those
Okay, yeah, I
comments
just
will
didn't want to
not
cause
remain.
confusion by people.
I think you got them because it was printed for
Oh,
you.
yeah.
But you can't
But when
see
I
it
sent
online.
it as part of the packet, I
Can't see it,
deleted,
okay.
you know, because
Okay.
the planning board comments, like Jan's like, what about this?
Yeah.
I
So
know,
I
that's
deleted
what
them
I'm
for,
like, that'll confuse
Yeah.
people.
yeah, that would be a
yeah,
mess. While it's good to hear what Jan has to say, I mean,
Right, we
there's a
all-
place for that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there-
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, on to 1300, there was a cleanup before, and in the revision section, it wasn't caught. It's changing from what previously was 15 hard copies printed and submitted. We don't need 15 copies. I just need
That's a
2
lot of
hard
copies.
copies for signatures and 1 digital. So this is just carrying through with that other provision in our ordinance.
Okay.
And taking out the 15 days kind of thing, it looks like.
Oh, yeah. So right now, the way it's worded is you submit your application to my office. I make a determination that it's complete. And then once I say it's complete, I do the quantitative, not the qualitative. So the planning board might disagree that it's not complete based on qualitative components, which is fine. That's just streamlines it a little bit, because some of these planning board meetings are spending an hour just going through the checklist of it being complete. So, no, they just submit it, I do my check, and then I get with the chair and say, this is a complete application, which meeting do we put it on?
agenda.
Yep.
Yeah, in short, I think this time requirement was redundant because it says it goes through your office,
Yep.
and that has the time implication already built into it.
Okay.
Okay.
And then that gets into the fire prevention and protection.
And is this, remind me, this is new?
This would be new, so
Okay.
this would live in the land use ordinance, but this is one of those items of, so like, where's it at? False alarms, for example.
Yes, okay, yep.
If you get a bunch of false alarms, you
Then
can now
we
be
have the
penalized for
ability
it,
to
so-
charge you, okay.
So the or designee that's shown as a track change on the second page, that'll just, won't be shown as a track change because it's all new.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm assuming that Jason Peasley has reviewed all of this and,
He was a part of,
Okay.
he found some ordinances that he liked to model off of. So
Okay.
he was a part of the creation of this,
Great.
yes.
And let me, if we can maybe just talk a little bit about this in terms of the big picture. And, you know, this is also part of us. We are going to have full-time firefighters who are working for us, and we absolutely want them putting out fires and, you know, showing up to rescue calls when needed. But there will be times when they won't have to do those things. And we have already have one of our firefighters is already highly trained with state fire marshal level of the ability to review the safety and life safety code as is now. But we don't have the teeth in what we're doing to provide for that now. We also have a former assistant chief for the Camden Fire Department, who's our alternate code officer. So we have somebody, we have people who have been there, done that, and you know, the important, that sort of, there's what's on the page and what's right, but they also have the ability to say it's an educational process, right? It's not about, you know, I go into someone's business and bam, you know, I'm going to write you up for this, and we're going to go to court, and that's not what it's about. It's about trying to get people to live safely, live in a way that if there is a call at that same address, someone isn't going to get hurt. Someone's not going to be in a bad situation when they do roll up. And I think that's really what this is about. It's about preventative as opposed to what this could come across as, which is some sort of, enforcement heavy handedness. And this and the next one really are both in that same world of trying to help our businesses. We have
Any
people
sort of
who,
education, public
Exactly.
education on what,
we have people who have the knowledge and hopefully, it's not so busy that they don't have the time to share that information so we can keep people safe. And it's not long ago, we did have, someone pass, a fatality in a hotel in Rockport. That's not a someday thing. That happened here. So these are the ways in which we can hopefully make sure that doesn't happen the next time.
And I'll say from our discussion on the planning board, the only, I think, issue that we were taking with it was, and I think Andrew described it as, there's discretion involved in what the language has. It's not that if there's a fine, for example, for false alarms, it's not as though automatically you get fines and the fines increase. It's like the fire department may issue a fine if,
But it
like,
gives
you've gone
you,
beyond
right,
3 or
it gives
something.
you that discretion to be able to do that, where we don't have
someone's
anything
working
today.
with you.
Yeah, and there's gonna be notifications galore before any of that happens, we were sure.
And in working with our attorney on this ordinance, he thought it was odd that we didn't have something like this
Already,
already, so that made me feel a little better
Yeah,
with it.
yeah, we've had some issues. It's good to.
Yeah. And then the last one's the licensing businesses and others. I was trying to get this into our land use ordinance, but only because of our interim peddler. We have that one. It's been an oddball for me since I've started here.
You're itinerant,
Yes. And it's just.
which is so like 19th century.
Yeah. So it works well with this ordinance because it adheres to it, so it's going to get plugged into it. So this is going to be a standalone ordinance, so the vote recommendation by the planning board is supporting of this, but it rides with it because it's an amendment to the land use ordinance for the peddler to be removed out of it. So that's where that is.
Okay. And this is just track changes as shown here. So most of this already exists other than
Yes.
other than
So where the
it
track
shows track
change-
changes are.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So are there any questions about this ordinance?
I think so, from me.
Yeah, I was curious, but it makes sense, I think. The idea that the renewals, I mean, and this is in the existing language, so I'm not, maybe it's really sort of out of order on my end, but that we only do renewals in May. Makes sense, I guess everybody's license comes up at the
That
same
was
time.
that was actually recommended by Andrew. He said it's easier to just have
To do it all the time.
once a year, and
Yeah.
you get it done.
Well, so then is this new language, or is this already
So
in there?
some of this track changes. So I'll have to go in and clean it up. But some of this for the peddler related items, that language exists, and then a lot of this is new. So
Oh, okay,
where
so
there's
we
track
can't really
changes-
see what's new based on this version. Is that right?
to some degree, yes.
Okay.
And I think if I go down here, give me a second.
So like the.
So if you go down to B peddling, I guess it would be page 42 on the digital version. I don't have a page number on this.
The performance standards.
No, under license types. So peddling, all of that language primarily minus, removing from a vehicle because Jeff pointed out a good point there. That's from our land use ordinance. And then the majority of the rest of it is new. So the edits that you're seeing is from myself, attorney, and from others in the office and the planning board. So this will be
So
cleaned up.
most of this is new.
Most of this is new.
Okay, so then all the track changes are sort of on top of.
On top.
And we have a lot of town manager authority in all of this. Is that how we would want it?
No, definitely not.
I was a little.
The planner, the chair of the planning board, anyone else? No.
Yeah. I guess you could say maybe it's too late, I guess, or designee.
Well, yeah. It's a good question. I think that there is, I mean, a lot of our peddler issues right now have been occurring on town property. So there is undoubtedly, there's a lot of questions that come back to staff, whether it's myself, department heads, whether it's the RES park or it's at Marine Park. That seems to be where we run into these issues most often. It used to be, for a time, the biggest source of itinerant peddling was on Route 1 and by Powerhouse Hill.
Powerhouse Hill, that's right.
That was where everybody was selling everything for a moment. But now it's down in the Marine Park, and so I'm thankful in a way to be able to make that process a little more straightforward and a little clearer in terms of our expectations. But I think this is going to be a bit of a wait and see. You work it, you see what happens, and then you come back and you tweak it. And I would say the same with the fire suppression. That both of these are new worlds for us to step into, and undoubtedly they'll need tweaking. But I can say right now, without question, and I'm sure some of it's come up to you guys at this point, this board, the way that we handle itinerant peddlers is completely bananas. And it's been a problem for a really long time. And so I like the idea of effectively throwing out what we have and starting something new. But let's hope that this is a better solution. It goes back to sauna. It goes back to a whole bunch of issues that have come up here in terms of who is Rockport, what is Rockport, and I think we have to.
And where does the buck stop? I mean, who
Right.
decides
Right.
these things? Is it?
Exactly. Yeah.
The state handles it differently too, when it comes to food. Yeah, you can pedal out of the back of a truck on Powerhouse Hill, and you don't have to have a 3-bay sink, but
Right.
other people do,
Isn't that crazy?
and a separate bathroom or a bucket.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, the state handles it differently, and
The food truck, and that was the first thing that I came into, was the food trucks. That the level of what was required for a food truck in one town compared to here was something different, because Scott and Jason and all the people who were looking out for the public safety people in Rockport were like, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. Now, maybe they didn't necessarily have the teeth behind it, but because they were so forceful in how they are, they were able to sort of just
People listen.
Commanded respect.
exactly. And the person who was sitting in my shoes before me and said, yeah, that doesn't make sense. That shouldn't be the way it is, because there are brick and mortar
It's not
businesses
fair to compete with.
exactly. But on the other hand, there is a difference. So how do you, how do you weigh those things out? So this is, I think, a great first attempt, and hopefully we can, say a year from now, once we've been through a summer of peddling, or approving peddling, we can, say we've hit it, or maybe we need some more changes. So.
Yeah. And I do see, it's not consistent through here, but that's the lawyer in my head. In terms of designee, there are places where it does say the town manager and their designee, some places and their designee, which I'm like, I don't know who that is.
Together.
Yeah.
We're late carbs. And,
So, but that's language that could be cleaned up later, but at least the substance of what's here is, as I'm understanding, a change that, John, you agree with, as well as the planning board and the
We
code
threw some other
enforcement.
designees in there, so we missed a couple.
Yeah, that's fine. I know, I'm not trying to be the totally consistent. I try to keep that zipped up. So, good. Can we make one change? I don't know, under 3A1?
3A1,
So-
draft applications.
Yeah, it's got an S, draft applications forms, but it's draft application forms. So there's just an extra S there.
Where are you?
That can be.
Oh, right there, okay.
That's sort of non-substantive and,
Yeah, no, that's
yeah, okay.
not gonna change a lot of anything.
Okay.
Well, I can tell a lot of good work and
Yes,
thought
there's-
went into this. So thank you for everyone putting the time into
All
that.
right, so then the only other ordinance is the poll
Let me,
Article
oh,
eight
wait, let me
or-
go to 19, under license types.
Okay, hold on.
This is another little,
Page 41, that one?
yeah.
Yeah, or at
Under
least the
license update, so 19A2. The fourth line from the bottom, it shall be the responsibility of every licensee to continue to conform to the approved criteria set for, but it should be set
Fourth.
forth.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm assuming the same thing, all these comments will go away.
All the comments will go away.
In our margins, okay.
Okay. And then next is the poll ordinance, unless you
Poll
guys, anybody has
ordinance.
any questions for these guys on the.
No, thank you. I know a lot of hard work's gone into that.
Thanks. Welcome back. Thank you.
So we discussed this at our July meeting. And I think the basic gist of it is we have a lot of like old, our rights of way are being used by other entities who are sort of just coming in and sticking a pole in one of our sidewalks.
In the middle of a sidewalk.
Yeah. And then it's up to us to sort of sort it out. We have a lot of double pole, old poles, new poles. Some have some equipment on one pole and different equipment on another pole. And sometimes it's hard to even figure out who owns the poles to even try to get some relief. So this is to also give the town some teeth to expect better behavior of the folks who use our right of way. Any thoughts or comments on that?
I know part of the teeth in this is to try to get rid of the dead half poles.
Yeah, and make them
just laying
move the
there.
wires that are on the old poles onto the new.
What, the ones hanging in the air?
Smart to do.
Yeah, right, yeah, and then there's the wires that are just like
Yeah,
hanging out there.
certainly with the clearance underneath and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I had to use a pole to push up the wire so my friend's RV could get out from my driveway.
Oh, jeez.
But I
Let's
knew it
not,
was low
let's not
voltage.
do that.
that's what you wanna know,
Let's-
which, is this
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just a
let's just
telephone
test
wire?
it
or
out.
is
Yeah,
this
let's not do that,
No,
Michael.
no, it was not smart. Otherwise.
Let's not do that. Okay. All right, no,
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
questions on the, no
So
questions
the
on
poll
the poll.
ordinance, now we've got the
Water crossing,
crossings.
yes.
So we've updated we got rid of the two different columns that really should have been one. So
Okay.
this is the updated version. So what we're talking about with this, to be clear, is we're talking about everything that's listed under critical, which is the West Street Extension box of 473,000. The Gurney Street box of 350,000. That's an estimate. They're all estimates, of course, but we're further down the road on some estimates than others. The Main Street box, which would be in front of Miller Farm, if you're familiar with there, just past Annis Road. Warrenton Street, which will be just a large round culvert, that's 96,000. We have a Meadow Street box, which is just beyond the Rockport Diner entrance, if you're familiar with that.
So we're doing critical and poor?
Critical, poor, and below average.
Okay,
Okay.
Yep. So the Meadow Street, that's a popular spot for beavers to do their magic. Chris's Road, that's the box that was damaged in the October 2021 storm that FEMA said that we couldn't prove was damaged in the storm, but were asked us
because we
to,
didn't take photos of culverts.
and they expected us to destroy the box to prove that it was broken. So,
Gotta
anyway,
love it.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay.
yeah, that's
And therefore make it impassable.
exactly.
Right.
Mind you, one of our trucks fell into the hole created by whatever washed out during that storm twice, but we couldn't prove it.
That wasn't
So,
good enough.
Not good enough for FEMA. Their crack bean counter is over there. Anyway, the Chris's Road and the West Street Extension were both part of the FEMA application that we were not successful in getting replacement funds for. So Chris's Road, and then Porter Street,
But we got a little bit
Got
of money
some
from
at
West
the
Street
125.
extension.
the West Street, that was actually a stream crossing grant from 2 years ago.
Okay.
And so part of the reason, the urgency behind this is that $125,000 is DEP saying to us, are you gonna spend this money or
Oh,
not? Because if
okay.
not,
We got someone else.
yeah, and we're starting to, we've been very successful in getting monies, but now these agencies are looking back at us and saying, when are you gonna spend the
We
money?
want you to spend it.
So we'll talk about that in a minute. Porter Street, there was a little bit of damage from that same storm, but at the bottom, the dip of Porter Street, there is a good sizable culvert that runs into Chicky. That is, again, it's another one of those, just like Gurney Street, that worry about salmon habitat. So that's why it's a little bit more expensive than the rest. And Mount Pleasant is one that floods with every major storm. It's the end of Mount Pleasant on the Hope end of it. It's the last major culvert we have on that run, and it's a significant issue. So those are the areas that we've highlighted here. The total, we have a new total here. So the total of these graded culverts is $3,260,392. So that's with what we have here. When you go to what we've pulled together for the warrant, so the warrant actually refers to a flat number of 3.4 million, because there's going to be some engineering that we have to take care of. Now, we are hopeful that we'll be very successful in grant applications. We just submitted 4 of these culverts for, 6 of these for consideration, 3 of which we've heard back that we did not receive the grant, 3 more we're still waiting on. So,
So this might go, I mean, the warrant won't go down for the 3.4 million,
Right.
but we may not need to spend all the
All of
3.4.
it.
exactly.
Right,
And
okay.
we have to ask for what we're going to spend or what we potentially could be spending, but every grant we get is $1 less than we have to pay for.
Okay.
Yeah. So
What
that's,
does it mean on the warrant article where it says appropriate a sum not to exceed 3.4 million plus any additional premium for the projects? Does that mean if the projects end up costing more than 3.4 million, we can borrow that, or are we capped at the 3.4 million?
this was one of the edits from Phil, and not sure it said why.
Okay.
I think that's just in case the math is off, right?
Could be, that could be. I'll see if I can pull that up. Pull up his edit.
Denise, while he's doing that, can
Yeah,
I
he
ask a
says-
question?
Yeah, sure, go ahead, John.
Are we going to vote on each one of the land use ordinance articles to recommend or
I
not
think
recommend? Or are
we
we gonna,
Yeah, I think we need to
We
do
get a-
each one individually so we can capture that vote.
okay, and then while we're waiting for John, has Jeff left the room yet?
Nope, well, that Jeff.
I'm still here, John.
Jeff Leclerc?
He's still here.
Yeah, Jeff and Orion, I did watch the entire meeting, the last meeting of the planning board on recording, and you guys did a great job. Jeff, you're filling Joe's shoes wonderfully, and it's as a longtime member of the planning board before select board, you're doing a great job, and I'm looking forward to seeing where you go from here. So thank you
John.
for all your service.
We look forward to having you at the next meeting.
Yeah. Thanks, Jeff. And thanks, John. That's a nice high praise coming from you.
It wasn't part of his edit, so this must be part of our text that we use in all of these, but,
I mean, typically our understanding has been that it's the 3.4 million, and if we go over, we just don't do everything, right?
yeah, no, that's the maximum you can spend.
Right.
Is
Yeah.
3.4 million, plus, obviously, the fact that
And
you're
I don't know if that
obligated
might
to-
mean if we got more grant money that would allow, that it isn't coming out of the voters, but I
Right.
just don't know.
Well, and it wouldn't be, I was thinking, well, the plus would be the additional funds related to interest, but that's not premium, so.
Okay. Well, why don't
Well,
we
is
go?
that the premium, where it says plus any additional premium? Is the premium the interest? Because if you're 3.4 and down here your interest is 1 million, is that the premium?
Now, they don't refer to it as, but that
Right.
could be.
Or, I mean, if it didn't, would it mean just if there's a little cost overrun, you still complete the project and spend it? You know, you don't just stop the project and hit 3.4 million, stop.
So
Like if the cost of materials went up a little
Yeah.
bit during the process.
the advice that I've always received is the bottom line number, the 3.4 million or whatever it might be, is the number you have to use as your do not go beyond
Right.
number. It's not a penny more.
Right.
So if it's 3.4
10.
million and
Yeah.
one, yeah,
Right,
10.
$10,
Then I better
yeah.
go through the cushions in the town office.
To find the
you know,
money.
to
Find
find
the
it.
money,
I can't
yeah.
take it out of this
Out of the
bond.
bond.
Right.
We
It's-
can't increase the amount of the bond. to get
Exactly.
More money.
Right. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's a good question. I've
Yeah, I
never.
mean, I
heard
looked,
that.
the next,
It's in a couple of
subparagraph
spots.
3, it says
Yeah.
not
Plus
to
any
exceed,
of-
plus any
yeah.
additional premium, and then it refers to dates, maturities, denominations, interest rates,
Yeah.
places of payment, premiums, calls for, so it's got interest as a separate matter from premiums.
Yeah.
Yep.
But really, I asked that because I wanted to understand that we're just capped at 3.4 million.
That's right.
In an auction, a buyer's premium is the additional amount the buyer pays on top of what was bid. Is that terminology comparable?
Gosh, that would suggest that our contractors are getting a
No, no,
kickback.
Right.
No, but I mean,
Yeah.
if it's like, because it's saying about, we have the discretion for payments,
Why
blah,
don't
blah,
we,
blah, 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 redemptions. If there were
Yeah.
financial processing costs or something, I don't know.
I know John's doing a little research. Why don't we vote on the planning, why don't we go back?
Go down and go
through the
starting on
warrant?
Article 2.
Yep,
Okay.
and get our votes for that, and then
So do we need to read them all? Is that how we do it?
I think
can't
we got
remember.
out from under that last time. We didn't
I
need to
don't
do that. We did our choral reading where we
And I
got.
want to ask a question to help clarify what John Beeman was asking. Are we voting
We're voting on
each
each
each of
one,
them, yes.
because
the
we have to
planning board
capture our recommendation for the
Yes.
planning ones.
as the planning board did?
And I think we'll vote on all of them individually, just
Okay.
to
Okay.
make a good record on what we're doing, yeah. Okay, so the first one would be Article 2. Shall the town adopt the amendments to the Rockport Land Use Ordinance regarding Chapter 300 definitions? Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
And I'll second.
Let's make sure our Beeman is with us. I don't see his
Any
face.
discussion? All those in favor?
Of Article 2.
Article 2. Okay, that's unanimous, 5-0.
5-4.
Okay, next, Article 3. We have a motion for, shall the town adopt the amendments to the Rockport Land Use Ordinance regarding Chapter 500 nonconformance? You have a motion in favor of that, adopting Article 3.
So moved.
Shall, a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 5-0. Next is Article 4. Do we have a motion for, shall the town adopt the amendments to the Rockport Land Use Ordinance regarding Chapter 600 administration?
So moved.
Shall,
Second?
Kim, second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, that's a 5-0. Next, motion for, shall the town adopt the amendments to the Rockport Land Use Ordinance regarding Chapter 1300 site plan review?
So moved.
Kim?
I want a second.
Yes, I was going to give you that chance,
Okay,
Michael.
good. Michael's on record. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 5-0. Next, Article 6. Shall the town adopt amendments to the Rockport Land Use Ordinance to place fire prevention and protection ordinance within and to be known as Section 609 Fire Prevention and Protection, and with proposed amendments to definitions accompanying fire prevention and protection?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, Michael, changing things up. Any discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. You know, I'm just noticing that these don't have question marks after them, which is,
Oh,
you know, because
Oh,
they're all
there.
phrased as questions.
yeah. That's true. We could make those edits.
Yes,
I
make those
think
edits.
I'll
yeah.
leave that to the, yeah. Article 7, shall the town adopt an ordinance to be known as licensing dash business and others?
So, second.
Kim, Michelle. Any discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. Okay, so that's it for the planning board ones, and then we can move on to Article 8, which is the poll ordinance. Shall the town adopt an ordinance to be known as the Rockport Poll Ordinance?
So moved.
Michelle,
Second.
Michael. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, and I guess this won't be, will this appear on the ballot, our recommendation on Article 8?
If you wish to have a recommendation, yeah, I can,
I think we should.
Yeah,
is-
sure.
I think it's
It is
important. It's
questionable.
good for voters to
To know that we've reviewed it.
Oh, John, go ahead. I don't know, your hand is
No,
like twice as
I
big
was
and I
just
keep missing.
agreeing.
Okay, great.
I'm just agreeing with everybody.
Okay. Okay, Article 9. Ooh, that's a long one to read. I guess, do we need to read that?
Well, basically, we are looking to approve the sum, right?
Yeah,
That's
approve the sum of the $3.4 million for the stream crossings identified in the warrant article. Do we have a motion to approve that?
I move that we approve Article 9 as amended, because we will put a select board recommendation on the bottom,
Oh, okay.
right?
Does it show on there?
It doesn't show on there right now.
Oh, yes.
Well, it does, it's just no numbers on there yet.
Oh, it does show on there. Oh, it does show on that one. It didn't show on
Yeah,
mine.
it's on the-
Sorry. Okay,
it's on the one
perfect.
that John
Then
sent.
I move that we accept Article 9 as presented.
Okay,
Second?
second, Michael. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, 5-0. Okay, and then Article 10 is which we haven't even discussed yet, but now,
Oh, yes. Let's pull that one up.
let's pull that up. That's, wasn't in the packet, but was added.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
You want to give us some information on this one, John?
So this is a, well, this is complicated. So the town was, as part of a larger effort, as we were engaged in this spring about WRFs and capacity of sewer and all that, there was a separate track going on to address some of the housing issues that the board and the planning board were working on. Really last year at this time there was a really strong effort, and those efforts took numerous forms. But one of the areas highlighted through that is infrastructure. What can you do in terms of infrastructure to improve the ground upon which housing can sprout? So Orion and submitted an application for a grant through the Northern Borders Regional Commission for support what we're calling infill. Now, that might not make sense to what everyone is, but effectively we have a network of sewer lines throughout the town. But they don't universally cover everywhere you might think. So when you look at the map, you look at it and say, well, why is there a gap there? And why is there a gap there? And why did we not go here? And there might be reasons related to ledge. There might be reasons for what was currently in those areas at a given time. But over 30 years, some of those areas were ignored. And a lot of the areas of expansion, particularly since the initial construction of our wastewater system in the early 90s, a lot of that, particularly what was in the village, was ignored in terms of expansion. And predominantly, the view has been on the major routes, the highways, go where the businesses currently are. And there are some, and some of what we heard through this effort, talking about affordable housing, is that some of these issues are about infill. And it's about creating pockets of density where they make sense. So Orion has met with a handful of potential developers of housing, and that developers can sound big and broad, and it can also seem very small. The most notable which is Midcoast Habitat for Humanity, who have been working really intently on a property that's off of Route 1, somewhat in one of those areas that isn't connected. And so Orion took, as what we do, right? We take these conversations with potential developers and we go out there and we try to find ways, and Orion goes out and tries to find ways on behalf of the town to make these things happen without the taxpayers having to foot the bill entirely. And so what we've...
Or in this case for sewer,
Right.
wouldn't be the taxpayers.
Right, exactly, right. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Yeah, so what the package they came up with, and this is what was ultimately successful in receiving $1 million matching grant from NBRC, Northern Borders. It would be a program of, and the total amount now being 2.4 million in total, but really that's 1.4 million of town funds and $1 million in federal funds that would go towards solving at least three of these issues. There's three areas that would be impacted. One is from Grove Street to the Camden Town line. The second, on Union Street, thank you, yeah, on Union Street. The second would be the Route 1 section from Fox Hill up to the Beach Hill Road subdivision, or Beach Hill Road intersection.
Fox Hill is the little business park area?
Yes, Camden National, right.
By Rockport Mechanical.
Automotive.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Neighborhood, okay.
Yep, so that's one of those spots. And then the third, and this came about, and again, part of, we're trying to make sure we fit all of the needs of the NBRC and other issues that we have in trying to put all these grants we have together and hold on to them that we thought we were going to have to use for other purposes related to wastewater. How do we hold on to these grants so that we can use them for similar needs, but not so dissimilar that these funding agencies say, no, we want our money back. So the third aspect would be a section of Forest Street West, which was an area just off of Route 90. It's the sort of loop-de-loop, actually it goes by Bob Colmar's house, although he's on sewer. He's on the part that is sewered on Forest Street West. But the end that ends up around by Seacoast Security, and there's a number of businesses sort of very close
Clustered
together.
right in there.
Exactly. So the idea would be to serve those and have that loop back around. So those three project areas would total the 2.4 million that we've discussed. And then, of course, there's engineering that goes with that. So it's a package that helps us to keep the ball moving on some of these areas, allows us to not lose, these funds have to be committed by January, so we don't have the ability to wait until what happens with the task force and others. These are decisions that have to be made sooner, or we run the risk of losing $1 million. And we've already, the earmark situation certainly didn't go our way. We lost $2 million there. So in large part, we're trying to keep, while we're making some other larger decisions as a town, the idea is to try to hold on to as many pieces as we can. So that way, when we've made that decision as a town, whatever that is, we've got the best possible, hand, for playing cards.
Right, and it, as I understand it, we're just trying to, for sewer users, everybody benefits if we have some more sewer users on the system. One of the things that makes our sewer system more expensive is we don't have enough sewer users on it. So even these little infill projects could be beneficial to other sewer users, because to just clarify, as we know from our recent discussions with the community about sewer, the way that's paid for is not through town taxes. that is paid by sewer users and those who are along the extended sewer lines. So when.
So would this 1.4 be only paid by the sewer users?
That's right.
I think I think we're gonna have some trouble with this on the ballot, to be honest with you, because I think people don't understand that, first and foremost. And I think the challenge is going to be that the voters told us they didn't want sewer expansion.
Don't know if I want to.
And I think that,
Although, I guess I want to let you
Yeah,
finish
yeah,
your
yeah.
thought on that, but I also think a fair way to interpret what we heard from the voters is they did not want to spend $52 million.
yes, agree, don't disagree with that. I just think we're gonna have to be very clear on this, right? I'm not saying I don't approve this, because I do think it's important. And I think there are great opportunities in the fact that we have $1 million. I think we just need to make sure we are very clear in what this means, because up above, I'm gonna ask you to approve a $3.4 million
Yep.
bond. And now I'm going to ask you to approve a 1.4 million, but I'm not gonna ask really, I'm asking all of you to approve it, but really the only people that are going to pay for that are the people using the sewer, or that have sewer available in their area. And I just think we're gonna have to be very clear with that to people, because the person who's sitting in my neighborhood in West Rockport, who doesn't have sewer doesn't go by us, they're gonna see this as another $1.9 million that could impact their taxes. And that's not true,
Right. but
because
we need to
they're not,
communicate
but we
that.
need to be able to communicate that so people realize that, yes, this is a lot of money. This is also, again, we have $1 million that we are being granted, and we should take advantage of that. But not everybody has to share this burden. And I don't think people understand that.
And in addition to that, I think a big question on everybody's mind might be, okay, so you got a $1 million grant. Does the idea of giving up $1 million grant, does that justify spending $1.4 million? I mean, are these little projects worthy on their own to pursue? Because I've heard people say, like, the idea of just trying to spend money to save a grant is ridiculous if there's not another very
Right, you'd have to
logical,
do
valid
the
reason to do it.
analysis.
Right.
Yeah, what does it mean for
Yeah.
long-term sewer rates?
So for 1.4 million, filling these 3 pieces of sewer line in, is there a great advantage that's much more of a benefit to the town of Rockport than just $1.4 million worth of expense? If I'm saying that clearly, because
I
that's
hear you.
a
I mean,
question that people are gonna
I
say.
think, do you want to come up to the table,
Yeah.
Ryan? Give you a
So
microphone.
from the users we would gain, this is an estimation only because of the Forest Glen area, that's kind of a today kind of conversation. So I don't know the exact number of users we'd gain out of that, but just on the housing, there would be 60 equivalent user gain.
6-0?
60 at least, and if we can negotiate a little bit with one of these developers, we could get a little bit more, but I'm not sure just yet. So you put into account the Route 90, that's addition, so there's quite a substantial amount of users that would be added to the system.
Okay, so I want to make sure for anybody listening that these 3 sections that we'd be filling in could end up getting us 60 extra houses, properties,
Equivalent users.
users on there,
So, new.
new ones.
That's not picking up additional parcels that are.
Okay, so this is like new construction for the little developments that are talked about,
New housing.
the new housing developments, okay. That's, I want to make sure that's very well
That's in
known,
that ballpark, yep.
because that in itself is a huge plus.
Well, and I would just to add to that, I think the other issue is the density that you are allowed, depending upon if sewer is available or not.
Yeah.
So, for example, there is, if you're a developer, if you're trying to create affordable housing in a given location, and you have to build a septic field, and you have to build, all that goes with that, your average, septic system being $25,000.
$20,000.
Yeah.
I wrote that check this year, yes.
Sorry.
For a 2-bedroom septic.
Yeah.
$20,000, yes,
So if you're gonna build something for 10 units,
right,
50, 75,000,
yes.
and that's, off the top. And I, and I'm not to, again, that's sort of, it's the same sort of idea of what's the right value judgment of all. And then there's the other part of this, which is the policy sort of side of this, the affordable housing policy of how are we going to, and there's sewer and there are unbuilt lots where you can create density now. Let's not assume that there aren't pipes. There are pipes ready and willing to take sewer today. But if in these instances,
In other sections of it.
yeah. But in these three instances, alone, we have individuals and some that are quite a bit further down the line where they are, ready to come to the planning board and ready to pursue approvals, and their scope of what they're going to do is going to take either a hard left or a hard right turn, depending upon will they have sewer or not. And so, and I don't know what the densities are. I maybe Ryan may be able to give some sense of that, but I think that's the differential we're talking about. I think, if I'm someone who has land and I want to, work with, one of these entities, we have the trust, there's a number of different entities who are trying to make this happen in our area. But it's a very different, the numbers pencil differently if there's sewer or not. And that's what I think, what does $1.4 million to all of our sewer users through their debt service, how do we take that and how does that the best, sort of bang for the buck, right?
So effectively, we're saying doing this will be the investment that will allow several, at least 2, possibly more housing developments for affordable housing to be built in Rockport, which helps achieve a very important goal in us.
That's the mission statement.
Okay,
That's where
it's not just we're gonna then somebody will build a private home here or there. It's not that.
right. And certainly there's a speculative nature to this, right?
Oh,
where,
sure.
Where we don't have agreements signed, but there are we certainly have entities who've been in and
Viable, legitimate things.
viable,
I'm
legitimate
thinking is
people who are ready to.
out in town going
Yeah.
well, geez, we've heard about things for years.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure that is clearly known. That's why this is being proposed.
And I would also add, it's also about in terms of the town, what's in the best interest of the town in terms of where should our sewer system exist, right? There was the talk that Bob and Bob Colmar and Bill had with as part of the task force about a strategic plan for our sewer system. Where do we need to be? Where do we get the best, that density, that we need? Where should we be ensuring, not just on an economic basis, but on an environmental basis, to make sure that we're able to help. If, for example, and this is, one part of this piece of this, but this obviously, a part of this could be a line that runs down. One of those areas is Union Street. So working with the Y and working with Midco Solid Waste. Now I know Midco Solid Waste is talking about doing
stuff,
but it's an option, and the more options that we have for our community, I think is a good thing. There are. I think it's a bigger question, and it's one of the few areas where I think our town can step forward in the area of affordable housing and try to find a way to do it without being in the middle of trying to sell land and being a developer. We can't do that. We're not good at that, but we can build infrastructure and take care of it.
And the why thing is something that came to my awareness recently, that their line goes underneath the landfill driveways and stuff, and they're having problems there, so
Oh, wow.
this could potentially
I know John has something he wants to say. I want to just make,
help.
because I also think we have the $1 million grant. It's possible we may get additional grant money for this project. We just can't commit, we don't know
Right, we don't know
that today.
Yeah.
John, go ahead.
Well, I have a number of points. Orion, those 60 additional users, 60 new users, have we determined what the reserve capacity we're going to need to handle that. And, there's an open question about how we're going to be able to accommodate additional flow. I'm not suggesting I have the answer to it. I'm just hoping you've calculated what the additional flow needs are going to be from some of these projects and if we do these extensions. My second point is more philosophical because we're talking about this as though in almost everything everybody said is about economic development and the good of the entire town. Yet we're talking about only the people on the sewer system, only the equivalent users actually paying for what's being approved. So to me, that seems a little bit like a disconnect going on. And I think I'd love to have a conversation at some point where we talk about if we're going to think of this as economic development and we're going to give everybody a vote on it, then we should look at amending the charter so that the full town, all taxpayers, help pay for these extensions because, there's a lot of money involved here, and it's, that's another way to make it more affordable and, kind of balance everything out as far as voting to approve a big expense like this. And my last point really is about the way we currently structure it. If we put an extension on our sewer system, we're expecting all the sewer users to foot the bill for that. And it's not necessarily the only way to approach this. We could, if we're putting an extension on, you can just restrict that pool of money you're spending and have it paid back by people that are coming onto the system. I'm not sure if I can give you the exact mechanism to do that, but I know that's common practice in many other areas that say, if you're going to put on an extension and it's going to bring on 60 users, those 60 users actually pay for that extension. Do you know what I'm talking about, Orion?
I do.
So there's a number of different ways for us to be managing these investments, but I think philosophically, I'd love to see it get into alignment with the way we're speaking about it, which is it's economic development. Everybody benefits from that. And let's make sure everybody who's got a vote in it also has some skin in the game. That's my pitch. So.
Well, to rest your mind on the quantity, we're aware of what these developments can produce and what those new lines would generate. Our sewer engineers drew that up, so I do have those numbers.
Yeah, we're gonna need that in their conversations with particularly Camden at some point. But also, I had one other question, Ryan. Do we have a priority on these projects in the event I'm assuming it's going to be a couple years before we can get this completed if it's approved, and if suddenly costs escalate dramatically, do we want to triage a little bit as far as how we think about them?
In terms of the lines to go, like which one to address first?
Like what's first, second, third in terms of our needs?
My recommendation, I guess is what I should say, would be to do the US 1, because there is a housing development there that I have talked with, a reputable company. They know what they're doing. They own the land. They want to do it. They want the density that they can achieve with, I'm going to look at this camera over here so I can look at John, so they can make it financially work. And then second, probably would be Union or the Forest. I don't quite know which one. And the only reason I don't know that is going to be dependent upon the contract or the developers and the agreements that we can strike internally with the town for them to develop, and we hold them accountable for it. So a couple of avenues there. So I would say first is the US 1 development line, and then second would be all others.
Okay, thanks. And by the way, don't misunderstand. I'm in favor of doing these extensions. I'm just thinking that we need to really look at how we're paying for them.
Agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions or
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's hold the money. We'll have other discussions we can have later, but,
Yeah.
and I agree with Michelle, and I think, you know, all of us that, some education.
Clear, right,
Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
so people, our voters understand what we're asking. So do we have a motion to approve Article 10, the sewer infill for a cost of $1.4 million?
So,
Michael,
Second?
Kim, any further discussion? All those in favor? Okay, great. All right.
So John, just as a programming note, we'll need to come into the office and sign this after you make some updates, correct? Some minor
Yes.
changes, okay.
Yeah, so there's, John caught a couple things he emailed me about, and
Okay.
there's surprised some formatting and that question marks.
Okay.
Did you catch some
Okay.
others, John?
Yeah, it's just actually not an annual town meeting, John, so you might want to fix that on the
See?
Special town meeting,
This
see?
is
Yeah.
this is why you're here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Happy to
Takes a
help.
village.
From the home
Takes a
office.
That's right, that's right. Okay, so we will come
Okay,
in and
and
sign
you'll
those.
let us know when it's ready to,
Yeah.
for us to come in?
Yeah,
and-
I'll have Diane have it all set for you guys to do what you gotta do. I actually have to sign it
Rockport
too.
Special town meeting warrant. Okay.
Yep,
Okay,
as it is.
all right. Some people think it's just election day, but it's a special.
That's a special.
What's special?
All right, next on our agenda is act on condemnation
You can't
order,
even say that.
Robinson. I know, I
Did-
got the
sorry.
condemnation order.
I missed, did I miss the votes, the recommendation votes?
fine.
Yes.
But
Sorry,
It was all
sorry.
5-0.
Oh, can I
And I-
use
but I
this point of personal privilege to answer your question about what it means to say
Yes, premiums.
premium?
Good.
So this is from Phil. A bond will have premium if it is purchased at a rate higher than the face value. The town can use that additional premium for the project cost or for debt service.
Okay,
okay,
So it's
one of those bond things.
a bond.
okay, okay.
Yes, but
Thank you, Phil.
thank you, Phil.
Yeah,
and
thanks for,
yes.
Googled it too, and I saw that, and I'm like, oh, is that how that works?
Well, that's
So that's the same answer I saw, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah. Anyway, so
somebody buys the bond and there may be.
yeah, and I don't, John, you don't care about motions and seconds for each of those articles? I've got all that anyway on my.
no, as long as
just
the
need the
the votes
5-0
are
for
It was fine
recommendations.
for all.
perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, we're pretty speedy around here. We had a good tag team going. Okay, act on condemnation order, Robinson Drive entrance. The continuing saga.
Never gets easy.
But it's getting closer.
It is.
So close.
It is. So let me just, so for the hordes of people who've showed up, and Tony, thank you for being here, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you for being here.
So we had a special town meeting in the spring. Everyone voted in favor. Unfortunately, due to the way that the chain of title works in that property, the owner who was unable to sign and passed recently, or the PR for the estate, was unable to participate in the closing and passed, which means that we are unable to close in the traditional means that we'd hoped for, or we wait until probate, the estate has been probated, 2 estates have been probated, and then come back and do a closing. That seems impossible, frankly, given the circumstances that we face and
The timeline.
the timeline we're
Right,
under.
yeah.
So I spoke with a member of the family who I've been working with on this from the jump. And he had checked with other members of the family, and they understood what we're doing, why we're doing it. Price doesn't change, the amount doesn't change. The same rights and responsibilities that were entailed with part of a regular sale from the town and so forth all remain. This is just changing the process for that.
Okay.
Now, it's definitely a more aggressive form in its worst ways, but this is sort of a friendlier effort of how this is being dealt with. So
And they understand why we have to do it this way. It's,
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. So what happens here is that you have a condemnation order before you that will, and we've put in here, there's a number of different notices that had to be filed, as well as this condemnation order. That's really the action that the board will take right now, which basically says that for public purpose and public use, for the reason of constructing an access point for this road, as well as drainage, the town has to acquire that property. So what will happen, this is, you've met here at this time, 9th day of September 2024. All of the people who were made aware of this are here. And what would be ordered here is, one, you take and condemn the property for public purposes. 2, you determine the amount of damages to be paid to the owners of record as just compensation as $28,500, which is the exact amount that was approved for the purchase in the spring. The original order will be filed with the clerk once you all have signed this, if you agree, and then that's the end. The order has been signed. And then subsequently, there's the next agenda item, which is to create a special town meeting. Still special, which would occur, and we talked about dates, so the 17th. But this is basically the board has gone on records to say this is the only path forward. We've opened it up to the public, and this is the next step.
So on the surface, it seems like an aggressive move on our part.
Right.
But in practical reality, it's just the circumstances are that the family is saying, yeah, we still support selling this piece of property to the town. And to make it happen quicker, this is the way we've got to do it legally, let's do it this way.
Right, exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So nobody
fully
knows,
aware.
we're
Fully
not
aware.
being
Yeah.
Ebenezer Scrooge.
right,
Right.
you
Yeah.
take advantage of it.
I mean, I will say, is there potential, it's like the Bach property over here across from the library, that for years they're like, well, is someone from the family going to say you can't use the grounds for this and that? There's always somebody we all have families. There's always someone in each family, right? But my conversations with the Robinson family have been such that this is understood, and we're looking to basically end this ongoing saga,
right.
write the
It's
check.
just the
it'll go to the
circumstances are
state.
different, unfortunately, for the Robinson family, that they had a death in the family, and the circumstances are different, and therefore, there are some different legality challenges that we
We
have.
can't wait for
To
probate.
move the
Right,
whole
right.
thing forward, yeah.
Right.
And it's going to fix the
There's
end of Robinson
there's a
Drive.
very large piece of machinery likely sitting on that land right now that
Yes,
needs
yes. And they've been great to work with throughout.
Good, great.
Many thanks to the family.
John,
Yeah.
you have a question?
Yeah, I think in anticipation of, avoiding any negative blowback or of any kind, even within the community, I would love to see us make a public statement thanking the family, blah, 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 even though all this other stuff is going on, something that we are proactive about, getting out in front of giving them the goodwill that they deserve for working with us on this acquisition.
Great idea.
Good point.
Great idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Okay, let's do the motion. Do we have a motion?
Who's gonna make the motion?
I move to approve the condemnation, I can even say the word, order for Robinson Drive entrance as presented.
Okay,
Second.
second, Kim. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great. And we can even take the opportunity right now to thank the Robinson family
Yes,
for being
absolutely.
willing to work with us through this process and to keep this moving forward so we can get that stream crossing fixed for the upcoming winter season.
Once and for all.
Can we send them some kind of a letter or something, just
Oh, I would
basically
think so.
capturing that sentiment?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
That'd be great. It's a great idea, John.
Okay, next is the special meeting. Act on the special town meeting, all as part of this. As John
So,
indicated.
are Are you ready for a motion?
Yeah. I
Okay,
think we can
so
jump
I
right to
move to
that.
approve the special town meeting on September 17th, 2024 as presented.
Second, Kim. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Great. Okay. Next is act on committee work plans. And we have the library committee's work plan. I don't think we have anybody here from the library committee, but we do have the work plan in the packet. Pretty straightforward. Library committee, I think, as most people know, has an endowment, essentially, an investment fund
Which is
that
great.
allows them to help pay for essentially the operational costs of the library, which is a huge benefit to our town. And good folks on the library committee meet monthly and do the work that's outlined here. And as John announced it earlier in the meeting, the interlibrary loan program is back up and
Yes,
running, so
great.
everybody's thrilled about that.
And this was voted and approved apparently at their last meeting, so that's, sounds like they've been through all the necessary steps.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Denise, if
Yes, John, go ahead.
do we get any kind of an update on what the value of the trust fund is at the library? And
I know
you know-
it's right around $1 million. It sort of depends
it-
on what the stock market's doing, but,
But we haven't received any new bequests or anything like that?
no, there's still, someone donated their whole estate, but I think that's still in probate. Do you know, John, on that?
I don't.
Yeah.
No.
And I think that would be, that's in the $150,000 range was what was expected.
Okay, and then is there a formal review on the building and grounds? I mean, I know the building's brand new, we shouldn't expect it, but is there a plan of some kind to, take a look at any, any maintenance issues, or how does that get handled?
Well, there's been the ongoing issue of the leak that I think is mostly fixed, but we've got Knowles coming in at the end of the month to just look at anything further in terms of little caulking and some of the last bits of work that needed to be done on the building. And then otherwise, I think we've been, we put a reserve in even last budget year for the library. So I don't think there's any expectation that there's an immediate need for money to be spent on the building, but we also are starting to set aside reserves in the event that were to
Good.
happen.
Yeah, good, okay,
Okay.
thanks.
And there's a book sale this weekend, so.
Get your book.
And look for volunteers, I see on the
Yes,
side.
looking for
so-
volunteers and go spend some money. The Friends of the
your books,
Library
that's
also
right.
supports the library.
All right, then
okay,
I
so-
move to approve the library committee work plan as presented.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. Okay, and I don't think do we have any discussion items? I don't see any on the agenda.
Adjournment.
Don't jump ahead, select board liaison reports. But I think I don't know, Michael or John, do you want to talk about the wastewater task force, if there's any updates on that one? Have you had any meetings since?
Oh, gosh, John can do
John's
better
got
than
his-
I'm clouded.
Yeah, I can jump in.
Okay, that'd be great, John.
I think since last we met, we've had the tour of the Rockland wastewater plant on the 20th of August, which was really, really informative. And Denise, I've recommended that the entire select board also do a similar plant tour at some point. And we're waiting to hear on setting up a date to go to the Camden plant. The next meeting of the wastewater committee is tomorrow at 4:00. And I think one of the issues that is out there that we need to probably get on our radar at some point is some level of interlocal agreement with both Rockland and Camden until we have, to buy us some time to work on a long-term agreement or not. But right now, we're kind of flying without any safety net or any agreement other than kind of just going along with the terms of the agreements that were in place. That would really be my update, because I think we're going to have a pretty healthy agenda tomorrow at the meeting, so we're probably going to have a lot more information there, and I'll share the meeting notes with everybody once we finish our meeting.
Okay.
I do have a liaison report for the planning board.
Let me
If
just
I could jump-
interject briefly, because we
Yep.
now know, I think we're all set to meet with the Rockport Select Board and the Camden Select Board. We'll be having a joint meeting on September 24th at 5 p.m. at the French Conference Room in Camden. So if everybody, make sure that's on your calendar, and the public can be aware of that as well. So that'll be interesting,
Now, what-
because
That's,
September
That's-
Tuesday, so next Tuesday is when we have our special
Special
town meeting.
First of
Yeah,
two.
the first of 2 upcoming special meetings. And then the following Tuesday, so our Tuesdays are starting to get a little busy. The following Tuesday would be with the Camden Select
At
Board.
5, and that's in
At
the
5.
John French room.
Yeah,
In Camden.
In Camden.
5
Yep.
to 5:30.
yeah, and that's a great,
Is it 5?
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Good. On my calendar.
that's a great development, Denise. I'm really, really pleased to see, and thank you for taking the lead on that.
yeah, I think it looks, it is positive. I think this will be a good group.
Oh, it's huge. It's a huge step forward.
Yep, so we're looking forward to that, and we'll sort of,
Audra emailed me tonight, so we're gonna start working on the agenda. for
okay,
that meeting,
great,
too.
that's, yeah,
So-
I was gonna, I
Nice.
think we
Okay.
Next up,
give some thought to that, and, okay, so go ahead, John, on your liaison.
Well, the planning board, you heard most of the conversation with Jeff, who's doing a great job, taking over as chair for Joe Sternowski. There was very little on the agenda this meeting, besides a lot of conversation on the ordinances. But there was just a small application from the Goose River Golf Club to put on a big shed in the garage, up a new shed and garage. But the thing I wanted to share with this group is there was a conversation, because there was so much work done on the ordinances within the planning board and with Orion, that there were unanswered questions about the role of the ordinance review committee. So, quite frankly, I didn't know how to answer it, even though I wasn't in the meeting. When they started talking about it in the recording, I was like, yeah, they're right. Where are the ordinance review committee, and is there a need for it?
Yeah, and I think some of the members of the ordinance review committee have been wondering that as well, just sort of.
Yeah,
how
and
to
if
sort that out.
they're not, if it's not needed, if we're at that stage where we've got, really competent staff and good counsel, maybe it's time we phase that out. I mean, I'm just offering that as a
Yeah,
thought, since
yeah,
I
we
didn't
haven't
see
really
them
talked
in the
about that.
conversation at all.
I think it's a really good question, John, because I think, you look at the history of that group, it exists well before we had planners, well before we had, competent, as you said, competent staff. I think that's a game changer in terms of how we work and how we are able to put things forward. And just looking at this process, I think you need to have some clearinghouse of staff work that goes before a public body that says, hey, I think this is a good idea before it gets to the 5 of you. But exactly how you get there, before it was 7 people getting up at 7:30 in the morning to literally sit around a table and work it out. Now we have someone who's here 40 hours a week and then some, who's a professional who's doing that, and it's a different process, I think. So I think it's a really good question, and I think it's reflective of the growth we've made as a town. Is there still a role, perhaps, for others who have that ability to buy in? It may be through the planning board, who are on the planning board, or even a subcommittee of the planning board who want to, that might be another avenue. But I think it's a really good thought and something that the board should consider in a forthcoming meeting.
Yeah, as a liaison
Yeah.
to the ORC, I know there's some good brain power on the ORC, and especially history of sort of why our land use ordinance has some of the provisions it does, and folks who really are coming at it from a lot of different perspectives. But you know, so if
Yeah,
there's a
but
way
from
to,
where I sit as, having, been there over a decade, it used to be the Ordinance Review Committee sort of came up with ordinances, and it almost completely bypassed the planning board.
right,
And now it's almost the exact opposite, which I think actually, having watched this last process, worked much better, was much more efficient. I agree with you, Denise. There's some really, really smart people that are on the Ordinance Review Committee, and they do great drafting. Maybe it's just a subcommittee of the planning board, but I think it's important that the planning board, be fully engaged with, things that are changing in the ordinance, because, they're working with it every day.
they have to implement it. I mean, I think we got in situations, some years ago where the planning board is trying to apply ordinances that they weren't all that familiar with because they hadn't drafted them. So I agree with you.
Yeah. So something to look at when we get to that point, wherever it is, in terms of governance and structure.
Yeah. We'll talk with some folks, but maybe as a subcommittee, I don't, let's get some thoughts on that, but that's a good point. Any other liaison reports?
Quick one from Pathways Committee earlier today. We didn't have enough people for a quorum, but two key elements I was actually asked to be sure to
Bring these to our
reinforce
attention. Yeah.
is that they're working towards trying to be using the Complete Streets program as kind of the role model for us to try to work towards as the big overall goal. But it's a definite need that we don't forget about the work the Pathways Committee wants to get done, and continue focusing as a select board, on the Sewell study and the VPI and all that, so we don't push things down the road when other things like sewer and whatever else come up and takes a higher priority, it seems. So.
Well, and I think that could be important, because as we think about the VPI study that came up with the sort of sidewalk plan in the village, DOT and sort of tandem is working on plans for the bridge. And what we were told is if we wanted to have a sidewalk on the other side of the bridge, on the harbor side of the bridge, so both sides would have sidewalks, the sidewalk had to go somewhere. They weren't going to just give us a sidewalk on the bridge if we didn't also have sidewalks that extended from there. So those are important points.
And things like, even when there's work done on culverts being replaced and stuff like that, they just want to make sure that we don't miss an opportunity to do something towards progress on pathways and bike lanes or whatever, when big
While we're
culvert
doing that,
projects are
right,
being
yeah,
done.
it makes sense, right,
Yeah.
I mean,
Try to be aware of this when these other things are being worked on or planned. Yeah.
And I'm sure the Pathways Committee will be excited when the $308,000 project for stormwater and a sidewalk along Main Street is completed.
Glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to
That's
ask.
a big step
huge
forward.
I mentioned that
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know the details of it, but I know the work on Main Street.
Yeah.
And it mentioned sidewalk in it.
Absolutely.
So there's sidewalk being.
Except 18 inches.
Don't
not
tell
just-
Clay.
It's not
Don't
just
tell
a
Clay.
stripe.
He's
on
not
the-
watching.
It's just not a stripe on the road, right?
It's not a stripe on the road. It's raised. It will be a concrete
real
curb,
s-
and it will be raised, and it will look like a honest to goodness
This
sidewalk.
is a wonderful,
You will not be
wonderful.
taking your life
Yeah.
away.
bonus.
This
Right,
is
thank you.
this is coming from a list that was created by the Pathways Committee many moons ago. The challenge is it just takes a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So this is.
This is something that's going to make people very happy.
I love to make people
Yeah.
happy. I live for it. But it's we had a conversation about this today. Oh, now I'm kicking things. About, so we're gonna be starting our capital planning process, okay? So staff basically come up with the new capital needs. That is something that we're gonna get Ryan more engaged in than we have in the past, or he's been sort of looked at as another department head, but trying to find creative ways to fund these things so that, the question you ask about what's the bang for the buck of 1.4 million as opposed to. So really taking everything in consideration, but this is the time that road projects and all projects, we want to even talk about potentially including them in the budget. This is the time when people have to start stepping up and making those needs, those concerns known, making sure they're high enough on the priority list, so that way when staff goes through their thing and then eventually the board and the budget committee meet and we sort of launch all those ideas. That's, and I've sort of talked to Pathways about this in the past, but our monies are dedicated many, many months before. And that sometimes can be difficult, because
There are priorities.
it's happening now, so you see it, but, this sidewalk project is before I even got here. This is 4 years old, if not more. So it's, right.
5 years ago, we were gonna do that sidewalk.
Yeah, so it's just, there's a difficulty in this in that it takes a long time to get things done, but when it's done, boy, that
Be
Route
good.
1 sidewalk, that took a long time, so.
Positive news.
Positive news, yeah, absolutely, so.
I'll be the squeaky wheel
Okay,
once in a while. Not
any
always.
other liaison reports?
No, I wasn't able to make it to Harbor Committee, and I haven't caught up with Abby yet on it.
Okay.
But it is on my calendar for next month, or this month.
Great. I think that's it. So, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move the board
Second.
adjourn the meeting.
Well, we got a
And a
second
second.
almost before we got a first.
Before I got it out of my mouth.
Well, you know.
No, it's good. We're a well-oiled machine now.
Discussion.
All those in favor?
All in favor.
know.
Thank
Get well, John.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
Get
Yeah,
well.
thank
Yeah,
you.
you
Thank
feel
you for
better.
putting up with it.
Thanks for thinking of us.
Very good.
All right, see ya.
See
All
ya.
right, I have a
Bye-bye.
technical question. How do I get this?